Alright. Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are team Crushing the Meta. You're here with Hartayawi, aka D-Boy. Alright, D-Boy, what do you have for us? So, if you have watched, I think one of our last videos should be from last week's, right? And I have told you guys that I will make an update video of my Bruce deck. So this is the Unrivaled Bruce, and yeah, we'll just make a video about how the deck is looking like. But also, in this video, I will show you how do I sleeve my deck. Right, so we will be unsleeving these cards, and we will show the Unrivaled Bruce deck. We'll talk through it, about the deck, about lots of different things. So it will be just a chilling moment with you guys, right? So first, for the sleeves that I normally use are these, or the broccoli sleeves. The green one or the blue one are the ones that I use the most. But before, or if you don't have access to the broccoli sleeves, I will advise you to use these. These are also the ones that are already on the deck, so I will leave the oversleeves as they are, and I will change them in or during the tournaments. Other sleeves that I use, I also use inside sleeves. The only downside, if you use inside sleeves, it will not fit into these deck boxes. So that would mean that I could not use this one anymore, which is sad because it's a beautiful deck box, but it cannot hold that many cards. And even with the deck being a 50 card deck, it also cannot hold it anymore. So that is a little bit sad, but hey, it is what it is. We can't change anything about it. So yeah, we will have to do it the way it is. Alright, the sleeves that I am using are still the Bruce sleeves. You could take these out to use any other ones, of course, that you want. But for me, I'm using these, and I'm using these together. So right deck, normal deck. Alright, so let's start this process. So we are gonna do the inside sleeves as well, as we are changing most of the deck, so why not change it right away. For the starter, I've talked a lot about this, but the thing is that I change my starter each time before I play a game. And this is the starter that I actually like the most. It's made me think of Dark Irregulars, and Dark Irregulars is also one of my favorite clans, but because I only play Spike and Bruce right now, it's pretty cool to have a unit that could represent Dark Irregular a little bit. And there's really so much detail on this card. There's the book, there's the staff, there's lots happening, and I really like it. I like it a lot. And there's also the dragon thing in the background, so that's cool as well. While putting these side sleeves, you have to know which side you're using, and you have to use the same side each time. You cannot change it around. So for me, I always like to put it this way. It's the same way that I do with my markers. So it will go inside this, and then it will go into the Unrivaled Bruce sleeve. And with that, we can still put the oversleeve on the top of it. And these oversleeves do need changing, but I will change them when I go into a tournament. It's now too early because I'm testing this deck a lot at the moment, so I will not change them yet. Alright, and this is basically how I do my sleeves. Right, now we have Steve. When it comes to Steve, there is no other ride line that we could play when it comes to Bruce. Would be pretty cool to have a chance to play something else as in a different ride line, but this ride line works well with this deck. It gives you an extra draw in the early game, but also it gives you a booster in the early game that you could hit them with the 1 or 2 damage if you get a crit, which is good as well. There are a few decks that you don't want to give too much damage, for an example, heroes, but most decks you could just afford to give them damage, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, the right line, the extra soul, the draw, and the booster in the early game. That's pretty much what it does, but it does it well. It does it pretty well. It's also the same right line that we use in the all the Bruce's decks actually. There is no reason to use any other right line, but it would be cool if we had the chance to use another right line. Good thing about this is that this right line is also borderless, as in the art, which is something that I like a lot. Alright, and when it comes to the Bruce himself, of course, Bruce has two different versions. You could play the same version as this one, which is the also a full art one, but I like to play this one more. It actually gives you a beautiful alternative art to add to a deck that has lots of beautiful cards in it. So yeah, why not? Why not? Right? Why not? I will also show you the other Bruce. I think you already know, like his normal art, the same one as the sleeves. Well, it is in the binder, and I have my binder here. So yeah, why not just show it to you guys? Why not? Why not? I'm very generous today, as you see. So this is his beautiful full art that you could also play alternate. This is the borderless art. It fits the right deck more if you play it like this, but yeah, you cannot just skip the DSR. It looks insanely beautiful. All right, now let's see. So this is the right deck complete. Now let's get into the deck. So we have a grade 4s, grade 2s. Can you see the grade 2? Yeah, you can. Oh, nice. They are toward me, but that's fine. Grade 1s, grade 0s. I'll put the orders right here. And grade 3s in between. Because we play lots of different grades in this deck. Grade 1s, some grade 3s. Lots of grade 3s. This video will also get the chance to talk a little bit about Bruce, because we haven't talked a lot about Bruce lately when it comes to the added cards that we have added into the deck, which actually do make a huge difference, as in the way that the deck is played and the way that the deck is becoming defensively. And these kind of videos, because we do get the chance to talk a lot about a certain topic, we do have time to talk about whatever we want to talk about, right? So in this point, I would like to address the cards that we added to the deck that make the deck very tanky. One of them is the dragon, as we run 4 copies of it now. This is one of the cards that actually makes the deck very tanky, as it's a 15k shield. We also added the promo, also 4 off, and we also added 2 cats. This is something that I talked about in the video when we did it with Brom and his team, Vanguard Radiant, and that is pretty cool, because that tier list, I had the chance to be a part of a beautiful video from the channel, and also get the chance to show you guys that, that these cards, adding it to the deck, do make a huge difference. And now we'll talk about them. So what we did basically is we took out cards from the deck that were 5k shield or could become 10k shield or even 15k shield in a certain scenario, that they could not have that all the time. And then we added cards in the deck that have a consistent 15k shield each time. Of course, you need to hit your grade 4 Bruce first, but that's something that you will do, so there's no problem with that. They also make the deck more consistent, as you have a bigger chance to ride into your Bruce right now because of the promo. But it's all about the deck being also more defensive. So more consistent and more defensive. And those two put together, that is insane, right? So that's something that I really, really, really like about this deck, is the fact that it should not have been so defensively good, but it is becoming defensively amazing. And there is something in this that I really don't like. I see a small dot right here. Let me see if I have more of these sleeves. I never noticed that these sleeves are looking really old. So I think it's time to change to these, because I can't use them. Well, I can in a casual game, but I don't want to use them in a tournament-wise game. So because we are already sleeving everything, why not just to take them out as well? So thank you, beautiful Bruce sleeves, for being with me. But now it's time to use another sleeve. So we're doing these blue ones because they fit the playmat, and they fit everything of the deck. And yeah, so we'll put them right in here. All right, so we were talking about how tanky the deck has become. Then right now that we have added these cards into it, right? That does make a big difference, because these cards are 15k shield. As I said before, they are a consistent 15k shield that you could get off. And because of that, the deck now, even if you don't drive check triggers, you still have good defensive hand that you have these in hand. The cat 20k shield is just so good. It's like a front trigger, right? Which is the highest shield that normally you have consistent into your hands. So I do like the way that the deck is shaped like, and I think it's really cool that we have the chance to add these cards to the deck, especially cards like this, because they are, as I said before, they are not direct support. And what do I mean with direct support? They are not Diabolos cards. They're just cards that you could add to the deck as you're being a dark state. The dragon, his own ability is interesting as well, as in he give you the chance to soul charge from your drop zone. Soul charging from the drop zone means that you could not deck out easily as you did before. And because of this card, we now also play draw triggers. Draw triggers are important in this current meta because this deck receives a lot of damage in the early game. And also, when it attacks itself in the early game, it does not benefit from front triggers, as in you don't really call units to the field, especially not against Nobutama, as in they could not dominate you because normally they like to go second, and this deck also loves to go first. So because of that, in the first turn that they go to grade 3, they will not do much, even if they stride, because you don't have anything that they could dominate. So that's one of the reasons why this deck has a good matchup against Nobutama. Right, so we sleeved our grade 4 Bruce, and now we continue into the orders. We'll come back and talk about these when we hit the right braid. So we'll talk about the orders. And of course we have two orders that we talk about. We have Hellblast Full Dive and we have the other order. When it comes to the other order, the one that could soul charge you forward, which is of course Pandemonium Tactics. We also have Helheim, so we'll talk about that one as well before we get into the Regalia pieces. Alright, so these are the options that you have, right? Which option do you play, D-Boy? Well, you know I play Hellblast. So Hellblast Full Dive is the card that I play. Why? Well, let's talk about it in this video. So there are different reasons why I like to play this card. One of them is it's an SP. And some of you guys will be like, D-boy, that's not the reason. Well, for me it is. For me, is it a beautiful card, important to have to the deck. Another thing is the art. I really like the art of this card as well. But most importantly, it's the fact that with this card, it's always playable and you always know what you get. And that's something in my playstyle is important. But not only that, there is also more. The thing is whenever you get into the second turn of your final rush, if you already have had a final rush turn with Bruce, normally you don't really have that much cards in the soul left. Sometimes you have only one or two if you have used the new servant promo. If you haven't used the new servant promo, then you sometimes have even less. You could have just 0 cards in your soul or 1 card. And that does happen a lot because you do empty up your soul a lot. So if that happens, then you'll be asking yourself how much benefit could you get from this? Because this does give you 4 soul, but you don't have lots of soul if you play Pandemonium Tactics. Well, with this, you always know what you get. So Pandemonium Tactics skill, of course, when you play it, you count +1, which is the same for both. So the cost doesn't make it different at all. But Pandemonium Tactics, you get 4 soul charges right away. That is sick, right? That is some good soul charging. So that is pretty cool. But then you get the skill according to how many cards you have in your soul. So if you have only 1 card in your soul and you soul charged 4, or you have none, then you don't even get to draw a card. Because the first part of the ability, if you have 6 or more cards, you draw a card. But you would not have 6 or more cards. The second part of the ability is if you have 8 or more cards, then you get to draw a card and give your front row extra 10k. But that would mean that you would need 4 cards in your soul to have that ability, which does happen the first time you have your final rush. Then you have 5 cards or more in your soul. So yeah, that's not easy to achieve if it's the second time you have your final rush turn. And the last part of the ability, or the last condition, which is 12 cards, that could only happen if you have gone into your Bruce turn and you have soul charged with the 2 promos, and then you have reached a soul of 8 cards, then you soul charge 4 with this, and then you reach 12 cards. And then if you have done so, then you get a crit. Well, of course it's nice to get the crit. I mean, why not? But I think it's just hard to get that. Some people still play this card because it does give you the chance to soul charge more. But I don't, because I don't think it's good soul charging. Some random soul charging. The deck, of course, does random soul charging, but now with the promo and the dragon, you could just soul charge from the drop zone, and that's just better. So that's the reason we don't play this. Then you also have Helheim. Helheim is a counter charger, but apart from that, everything else is just not good. Discarding a card from your hand, sometimes you just don't have cards in your hand to discard, or you just don't want to. Drawing 2 cards is good, but you'll also be calling random cards from your hand. Sometimes you already have cards, and also the cards that you call get the 5k, which is not the same as Hellblast or Helheim, or Pandemonium. With that, the card is just not good enough. The counter charging is nice, and it's one of the reasons that we played it in the earlier, but now we don't, because we have the cat that could give us the same amount of counter charging as this card. So that's why we don't play both, and that's why I am more of a fan of the Hellblast. All right. Now we get the chance to talk about the Regalia pieces. So for Regalia pieces, we have the defensive one. That's one that we could, of course, always play, right? Because it's good. It's good defensively. But then again, I don't think that it is necessary in this deck to play it, but I could see some people playing it. It could be good against Overtrigger. It's just more defense, right? So yeah, if you guys want to play it, go ahead. But we all know that we have better choices. But this is the one that I was talking about. Now we also, of course, have this. So this is another card that we could add to the deck. We will not play this. As I said, Soul Blasting 1, we don't want to do that. The shield is good, but again, no, it's not necessary to have in the deck. You have better options. And the two options that you have are these two. This is a card that helps a lot with the deck. It could give you the right grade 3s. It could give you your Bruce to your hand. And with that, it does make the deck more consistent. This is a card that is good, especially against Nubitama. But we don't play it in this deck because it's the only matchup that it really does a lot against. And also, you want to play this as much as you can during your offensive turns. And the only moment that you would play this is if you go second against Nubitama and it's the first turn you ride into grade 3. That's the only moment that you would actually play this. Other from that, you would almost always love to play this. It depends on the format. If you play in a format where your opponent could retire your field easily or get rid of it or bind it or whatever, then you should play this. But if you play in a format where your opponent could actually not really touch your field, then you should play this. So if you're playing against a Nubitama, right, then this card will be more effective, and this would be a bad choice. Or you could only play it to just add the Bruce into your hand, and that would be it. Now with the promo, the grade 1 promo, the slicer added to the deck, it's easier to get the grade 4 Bruce. So I could understand people not want playing this and just adding this to every deck, because they would be like, yeah, D-Boy, but you will see Nubitama in almost every matchup, and this just buy you an extra turn. Playing this order or not, it doesn't matter. This will just buy you an extra turn, and I could understand that. So this choice is pretty much up to you guys. You could play the one that you want. For me, in this current matchup, or in this current meta, I agree that this is the better one. So that is my opinion. But in other metas or in different metas where you need like the right grade 3s to add to the field, then I think that this should be the one that you should be playing. So yeah, that is my opinion on the matter on which of these two you should play or you could play. But yeah, it's pretty much, of course, up to you to play whatever you want to play. So let's see. I think for now I will be keeping this one in the deck, and I will be giving this one to a friend of mine, to Martin, to add to his deck for testing and seeing how it plays. But yeah, this could change in the future. As I've said, I think both of them are pretty amazing, and yeah, you could play the one that you want. The good thing about this card is it also gives you an extra soul, and it also gives your Vanguard an extra 5k. So I could also say, like, for testing matters, I could also add it to the deck and see if it does come up that it does make a big difference. If we're not playing this but playing that we could also test that theory and see how how that would be. All in all, I don't think that that one card will make that big of a difference, but if you're playing the Nubutama matchup, I think that it would make a big difference, yes. So yeah, if you're building the deck right as we should, this would be the one that we will add to the deck. All right, now we have solved the Regalia piece of the puzzle. We could continue on to our grade 3s. And with the grade 3s, there come more and more explanation, because now things could become interesting. And you'll be like, D-Boy, what do you mean things could become interesting? Things were already interesting, right? Yeah, but now even more. D-Boy, we really don't get it. Because now we get the chance to talk about the dragon again. And we talk about Marjorie. And we talk about Brian. Hey. These 3 cards make a huge difference in this deck. First, the dragon. So we've talked about this as it is a card that is good defensively, right? But we didn't talk about it offensively. This is a card that is actually the best fuel for your Marjorie. And you'll be like, D-Boy, why? Well, it's pretty simple, right? I mean, I don't really need to explain it. You call it to the field, you soul charge 2 cards from your drop zone in the main phase, which makes it good for your Bryans, because your Bryans need to soul blast in the main phase. So that's one of the reasons why the card is really, really good. But it also stays on the field, which means that you could put it to your soul with your Marjorie, because your Marjorie, while attacking, needs to put a card from your field to your soul. So that's also one of the reasons why the card is really, really good. Not only that, the card also soul charges from your drop zone. And with it soul charging from your drop zone, you will have a lesser chance of taking out. So that's another reason why the card is really, really good. But that's not everything, because we've already talked about the fact that it is also a 15k shield in your hand while you're chilling on grade 4. And that is also something that makes the card even better. D-Boy, are you finished? No. There's one more benefit of this card. If you have it in the early game and you discard it to ride into grade 3, then you draw a card. Does that make a difference? In the early game, yes. Everything that could give you cards is good. Is very, very good. Because you have to survive that one turn that you chill on grade 3 or grade 4, but you did not hit Final Rush, and you did not make your pluses yet. You didn't do anything yet. And some of the decks that you play against in the current meta will just go off right away when they hit grade 3. And some of them even before that. And that's something that this deck doesn't really have an answer to, as in it doesn't really have any defense. You do have your triggers, and you do have Cat that is active, but will lose you to Soul. But this card actually do benefit from being rushed in the early game, because now you have Counterblasters to work with. And drawing cards, filling the field, and filling the Soul is beautiful. So yeah, a card that I did not expect myself to play E4 off, but tried it at 2, then pumped it up to 3, and then it just went to 4 in no time. I think this is the fastest card that went to 4 in this deck that I wasn't really sure about first. Alright, so now we get into the second grade 3 that we want to talk about, and that is Marjorie. Marjorie is a card that was released before everything. It's one of the cards that have been with us from the early sets, and it became one of the staples of this deck right away. It's only like very, 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 very sad that the card does not have the name Diabolos in it. If that was the case, that would make Vehement Spruce an even better deck, because of the fact that it puts one of your regards into your soul, but also because of the fact that it is and will always be a beat stick and a soul charger. Marjorie is your main soul charger. You want to have one or even two of her during the turn, the explosive turn that you go into your Bruce. And she will be the one of the cards that will give you victory. Sounds corny, but she really is one of the cards that will make a difference, because she become by herself a 22k attacker, a 23k attacker. But with the order, she's 33, and mostly your Brians, you will use one or two each turn you go into Bruce. She will be like a 38k attacker, and that is huge. But she also gives you 2 soul. She empty up your own field, and she's the one that just makes everything easier. She has a beautiful art. She has 2 different arts. Sadly, the second art that we got did not get an SP, so because of that, we are not playing that. We're playing 4 of the old arts, 4 of the SPs, and yeah, it is one of the most beautiful arts that I've seen in Vanguard, and to be able to play such a beautiful Pale Moon units in spikes, as now Diabolos, as in Bruce, is also something that I'm very, 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 very happy with. So that's one of the reasons that you will always play the 4 copies of her in your unrivaled Bruce deck. You could not play her in Vehemence, as I said before, but that's fine. That is fine. Alright, so do you need to play 4? Yes. My opinion, you do need 4. Why? Very, very, very simple, because as I said, the card does everything that decks wanted it to do. It soul charges, it becomes a powerhouse, it draws you cards, and yeah, it's amazing. The only thing, it needs Final Rush, but that's basically almost everything you have in this deck, so hey, you can't do anything about that. Alright. So now we get into Brian. Brian is a card that I also did not play at 4 right away. Is a card that I played at 2, then I added 31, and then knowing how good the card is and knowing that the soul could be filled with more and more and more cards, now we play 4. 4 copies of Brian. What does Brian do? Brian basically is the card that gives your Vanguard the extra crit. And with that, the pressure that your Vanguard will do with the amount of power that it has becomes insanely high. And that's something that your opponent would have to deal with. Don't forget that you also have the Overtrigger of Dark State that could give your Vanguard another crit if you have gotten the chance to drive check it. So your opponent will basically need a PG or 2 each turn you do your Final Rush shenanigans. If they don't, then basically they would have to take 3, 4, sometimes even 5 damage from your Vanguard attacks. So that is the reason why Brian is so good, and that's also the reason why you want to play 4. You want to play 4 because Brian and Marjorie are 2 cards that you don't want to discard in the early game to ride, but it does happen sometimes and it's just sad. But you want to have him on the field, you want to activate his skill, as I said, once or twice during that unrivaled Bruce turn, and it's kind of an OTK turn, right? So you just want to kill your opponent at that turn. And the reason why you play so many crits and you also added the Servant to the deck is because you want to have a little bit of an early game and you want to hit them to 2 or 3 damage in the early game. And if you do so, then you could pretty much finish them off on your first Final Rush turn. If that doesn't happen, then you hit them with a second Final Rush turn, and that's when you kill them. The deck also do draw a lot, as your Marjorie draw you a card. So mostly you have 2 Marjories on the field, or a Marjorie and a Servant, and with that you will be drawing 2 cards. You have a drive check of 4, so those are 6 cards that you add in your hand to your hand during that turn easily. But you have more cards that could give you draws, right? You have your Dragon that could give you more draws, which is cool as well, because then you commit to the field, the Dragon, but the Dragon will give you a card back So again, the deck is now in perfect balance again. It fell out of balance with me adding the new cards to it, but now it just fell back into balance, and I also adjusted my playstyle a little bit for it to be better, because the deck, as I said, is more tanky than it actually should be. But it's all because of the 10 cards that we add to the deck that give it so much shield value. Okay, we're almost done with our grade 3s, and with that we will jump into the grade 2s. The grade 2s, we don't really have much options. We played Derek before, and I will explain why we took Derek out. I don't feel like Derek is good in the current meta, as in you also need your opponent to have empty Vanguard circles for Derek to be active. He could retire stuff from your opponent's field, but I didn't feel like the opponents, most of them have cards that you really want to retire. For that reason, we did take Derek out to add in new cards to the deck. And the cards that we add to the deck. So we add 3 or 4 copies of this to the deck. Depend on which order you play, depend on how many Bruces you play. Because this is the flexible card that you could take out to play whatever. But one of the cards that you normally want to play a 4 of is actually Bruce. But because of the promo right now, the promo grade 1 slicer, you don't really need 4 Bruces, but I do understand why people could play 4. I like the fact that we now play 7 Bruces in the deck. That's good enough for me. And normally I do play this, and with this you have more Bruces, kinda. So that's another reason why I normally did not feel like it was necessary for me to add the extra Bruce. Now I'll be testing it with the other order, right? Because the other order does draw you cards, so you could randomly draw into your Bruce. But if I get the chance that, or if I get the feeling that I am not having enough Bruces in the end, or the deck is not consistent, then I could add the Bruce back, or I could add the order back. So yeah, the order is only out because of Nobitama, because it's really a bad matchup. So for now, we are playing 4 of the servants, grade 2. We have the shiny one, thanks to Dual Dimension and Ricardo. So thank you guys for this beautiful order. Grade 2. This beautiful grade 2. And again, it's another promo that will help the deck become better and better. And if you don't know what it does, I will read it to you. I will just read it the way that it is. I will not explain it. I could explain it, but I will just read it. So it's actually a very good card that you could add in your premium decks or in your dark state decks. But the thing is with this card is that it feels more like a filler. Like it's a card that is in there, but it's not necessary, and it doesn't really do much except being a card that could do a little bit of a card that she replaced, or of a card that you could not draw. And when this deck actually got the chance to play 50 cards, this is one of the cards that is kind of a filler that could enter the deck. And that's the way that I felt about her for a very long time, until I tested her and I came to a conclusion that if this deck goes second, then you could still use the promo to ride into your Bruce. Your Bruce will not have Final Rush, but you will be grade 4 and you will have triple drive. Because now you are grade 4, your dragons become active, as in their shield and their skill, but also this card becomes active. And when this card becomes active, you could do a little bit of rushing, a little bit of drawing, and a little bit of soul charging. So she acts almost the same as Imariori. So her skill is the first part of the ability, and she has a second part of the ability. Both of them on the Vanguard, both of them are auto abilities. When this card attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, that is very important. So you could not use your skill attacking to a rare guard, or if that rare guard need to be a grade 3 as well, then that would work. So if you attack into a grade 3 or greater unit, then you could choose one Dark State card from your drop zone. And then this unit gets an extra 5k until the end of battle for each of the grades that that card that you have chosen have. And then you add the card that you have chosen into your soul. So pretty much, when she attacks, you soul charge 1 from your drop zone, and she gets plus 5k for each of the grades that that unit has. The important thing is she needs to soul charge a Dark State unit. And remember that your orders, your regalia pieces, are not Dark State, so you could not put that into your soul. But then again, the regalia piece normally go into your soul by its own, but you could soul blast it. But it's a grade 3 that could give you 15k shield. But as I said, you could not put that into your soul with this card's ability. The second part of the ability is interesting as well. For this deck, it's perfect. At the end of the turn, if you have a grade 4 or greater Vanguard, you put this card into your soul and you draw a card. So she could help you draw more cards. And that is pretty good because it's not only soul charging, it's also drawing. And that's something that we always love. Alright, so that makes it a card that you actually would want to play E4 of in this deck. And I think that is understandable, right? That is understandable. Alright, let's put more of these. Right here, so we could add more. And now we talk about the great ones. So we're talking about the promos. Let's start with Slicer. Slicer is another card that I first thought I would play a 4 of right away. But with testing it, I came to the conclusion that that one counterblast does hurt. And with that, I would rather not play E4 off of the deck. And then I tested more and more and more, and I saw that it's also a format where your opponent wants you to go first. I thought, wait a minute. I'm paying one counterblast to have an extra drive check, right? I mean, it's the same as in some units that you get add to the deck that gives your Vanguard an extra drive check for that one CB, right? So, you know what I'm talking about. Do I really have to show you everything? Okay, let me show it to you, because again, I'm feeling very generous today and I have my binder with me. It's Mabel. So this is the card that I'm talking about. Another beautiful SP. So this needs to boost the Vanguard, and your Vanguard gets triple drive, and that's just cool, right? But we don't play her in this deck. There's no reason to, because we have better cards, and because it only works if your Vanguard has twin drive. But then, if you use this card, your Vanguard basically will have an extra drive check on that one turn that happens if you go second and your opponent's only on grade 3. Because this promo only works if your opponent is chilling on grade 3. Because its skill basically is an act. If you have a Vanguard with a boost in its card name, you could put this card into your deck and you could choose one of your grade 4s from your deck, soul, or drop zone, and you could ride it. It does cost you a CD. And that's pretty much it. And then you ride it as stand, and then that's it. You return the card to your deck, as in the promo itself. And the second ability is if you have a grade 4 Bruce, this card gets plus 10k shield. It getting plus 10k shield means that it's a 15k shield. And this is something that I explained at the start of the video. That does make a big difference when your cards are 15k shields instead of 5 or 10k shield. Because it would be way easier for you to defend against multi-attacking decks. Also any decks, because yeah, you have more shields, so yeah, that's understandable, right? why did I add it back to 4? Because of the fact that lots of decks want you to go first. And if you do that, you will reach your grade 4 Bruce in time. And then you will have the defensive shield. But if other decks that rushes you want to go second, they want to go first and you go second, then you have the chance to use this to be able to get your Bruce. But there is another reason. That one counterblast also acts as a soul charge, because even if you're sitting on your grade 4 Bruce, you could still use this ability. It only costs you one counterblast, but you could still put this card back to your deck and search your deck or drop zone or whatever soul to ride a Bruce. And it doesn't say that your Vanguard needs to be a grade 3. It said it needs to be a grade 3 or greater Bruce. So you could pretty much unrival Bruce on unrival Bruce just to have one more soul, if that makes your turn better. And this is something that I didn't know. I noticed it while I was testing. And it's great, because it's something that you could activate in the main phase. But mostly it's because of the 15k shield, and because it makes the deck more consistent, and because if you go second, you will still be able to have that extra drive check, and that would make your servant promo, the grade 2, active on that turn, and that is also the moment where that card shines. Now we talk about Cat. Cat is good. There is no reason not to play it. If you put it on the field to counter charge, then you could just put it into your soul with your Mayuri. You could boost with it first and then put it to your soul with your Mayuri. You could do whatever with it. It's pretty good defensive shield. That's one of the reasons why I love this card. It's 20k shield by returning the cards to your right deck. Would you play 3? You could. I did not test 3. I felt at one point that it was unnecessary, because if you have activated both, then the third one would not do much. But again, if you discarded it in the early game or it ended up in your soul on your damage, then yes, 3 would be good. But in this deck, I actually like to have more soul chargers. I don't want to play too many cards that are shield or that are just in there. I wanted to play cards that give you a soul as well, because as I said, there is a perfect balance. And then we have PGs. I don't think that we need to explain this. We could explain the fact that we could not play the ordered PG in this deck because we are grade 4. And you have 2 different arts that you could play for the PGs. I'm going with this one because I like this one more, the colors and everything, and because this deck doesn't play any DSRs. So there is no reason to play the other one. The other one is chilling in my Vehemence Bruce deck, as that deck is also a speed out. So yeah, I think that is pretty much it for that. Again, PGs are cool. This one has, of course, the ability that if you have 1 or less cards on hand, you don't have to discard, which is good, because sometimes this deck keeps 1 card on hand that is like an order, and whatever you draw next turn, your final rush will be active and the order will give you another card. So you have an attacker that you draw, and you have an attacker from the order. So even if your opponents destroy your whole field, you still have a pretty good turn. You could call whatever you have in your hand, as long as it's not an extra order, the one that you draw. And then whatever you draw from the order, you could call to the field as well. So you could still create a very, very, very strong turn. But that one order that you keep on hand does make a huge difference in this deck. The order actually just gives you the 10k power to your whole front row. And if you could combine it with something like a Brian, then that becomes insane, because that's a 15k to your front row and an extra crit to your Vanguard. So again, the order makes a huge difference because you are restanding your rear guards. So that's why it's good. Now we come to the triggers. So we play crits, we play draws, we could play fronts, we play heals. and we will talk about all of them. First thing that I want to talk about are the heals. So when it comes to this deck, which heals do you want to play? For me, I normally play the 15k heals. Why? Because I like them in the early game. They actually make a huge difference in the early game. Because of the fact that they have a 15k shield, it's a consistent 15k shield. As I said before, that if you draw into them in the early game or you drive check them or whatever, you could just use them right away. And with that, you will deny your opponent giving you 2 damage just like that. So that's one of the reasons why I normally like these heals. But with the amount of Nobutama players out there, I also would like to test the 2-on-2 heals with the one that restands. Or the one that gets power if your opponent has something that restood. And that's a card that I think is like the better choice in this current meta. And I think that most of you guys agree with me. The only thing that I dislike about this is it's not borderless art. As in almost everything else except the OT, because we play this OT, and also his other version, like the alternative art of him, is also not borderless, which is sad because that card should have been borderless if you ask me. So that's the reason why we could play the heals. You could play this is borderless. Thank you, Alex, for this. But we will not play that in this deck because this crit makes a huge difference. The crit that gives, especially if you drive check it in the early game, your Vanguard will have the 10k in a crit during the whole match. And with a restanding Vanguard, that makes a huge difference, right? So yeah, that's the reason why we are keeping this OT in the deck. Back to the heals. Would I play 2-on-2? I would like to test it because I didn't test it that much. The thing is with this card, it will be a 10k shield against all decks that don't have a restanding Vanguard or Vanguard, right? And is Nobutama the only one that makes a huge difference? Well, not really. You have some others as well, but I feel that you're basically playing it for the Nobutama matchup. And that is kind of understandable, right? If you lose on that 5k, the difference between these two, then that is sad. But sometimes you also just overguard with your 15ks. Also, the deck has lots of 15ks, so I think we could afford to play some 10ks. That is fine as well, because as I said, you do attempt to overguard in some situations. So with that, I think we could play 2 Arianas and 2 of her. It's another card that feels very Pale Moon-like, right? Yeah. Alright, so thank you, Oriana. We will take you out to add in 2 copies of this. Are there other heals that you want to play? Do you want to play the one that gets an extra power if your opponent has the unit that gets an extra crit? In this current format, I don't think so. Like, you could play against heroes, but normally you will PG the Vanguard because you don't want to get hit with an overtrigger on that turn. Are there others that you could play it against? Yes, but there are not that much played, so I don't think so. So I think the 2-on-2 is just fine. I think that should be just fine. Let's not forget this. Put it in. It's also a beautiful card. I do like the one that gets the crit more, but hey, this one's beautiful as well. Did you see me checking this one? If this one put into the right sleeves, yes or no? Because I'm talking to you guys and I'm sleeving my deck at the same time. Mistakes could happen, but I don't think that we made any mistakes. Did we now? Did we now? Did we now? No, we didn't. Because we're good. we are good. Thank you guys for keeping me company during unsleeving my decks. Normally I will just put up a show in the background or series or a movie, and I will be watching that and doing the sleeves at the same time. It was like the best relaxing moment. But I thought it would be nice to talk to you guys about the deck and the changes that the deck have. This is also like a video more for the really diehard, dedicated people to this clan, or right line, to this right line. So yeah. Alright, so now we jump into the crits. And we go to the crits. We have the Diabolos crits. We have the Happy Ward crits, and you know that I have those as well. You guys know that I have those, right? If you don't, I will show it to you. But first, let's put the Arianas away. So let's put it in a sleeve, just like that. I put this one into a smaller sleeve as well, and then I'll put them into a bigger sleeve, and then they go into my collection binder. Alright, so crits. Of course we have the Happy Ward crits, right? I love those, and I'm not playing them in Overdress, but I do have them. And the reason why I'm not playing them is because I trust my Bazooka Meisje. Meisje means girl in Dutch, small girl, and bazooka is bazooka, but this is actually not a bazooka, it's a rocket launcher. And that's why it's funny. I always called her Bazooka Meisje, and he's called Bazooka Jongen. Jongen means boy in Dutch as well. So we're not playing these or any other alternative arts crits. We are just playing the crits that this deck should play, which is Bazooka Meisje at 4, definitely. This is also a card that breaks the curse of the 1 to pass. I do have a curse of 1 to pass. If my opponent says 1 to pass, then my Vanguard I tend to not get any triggers at all, which is so strange, but it does happen so often. But this one crits is just the exception to that rule, or that bad luck, or whatever you want to call it. This one breaks every 1 to pass my opponent ever gave me on this deck. And even if you have one of it in like a 20 card deck, she still will be there. That's so strange, but I do trust her. So yeah, I do play 4 copies of this, as she's a Diabolos. She fits the theme, and she is just beautiful, as in the art, as in everything. There is also like a scene in the original Vanguard Overdress, where I think the first or second episode, where Dungy called this card, and then you see a demonic hand coming like from the side of the screen, and that demonic hand touches Dungy on the hand as well, and then he drive checks this card. And I always thought it was a demonic hand because it was black and it was skinny. But it was not a demonic hand, it was her hand, but she is wearing gloves because she has that rocket launcher. And because she is not that big, her hand looks skinny. So it's very strange. It looks like a demon hand, but it actually is just her hand. And she is a succubus, so she is a kind of a demon. So we are not wrong there. Yeah, pretty much you could play whatever crits that you want to at this point. These 4 off, any art that you like the most. For me, I like her. She's Diabolos. She's beautiful art. She has a story. We have a connection. And she also is in a borderless art, which fits a lot of the cards of the deck as well, especially the triggers. So 4 of her. Do we play less than 8 crits? You could. You could play 4 draws in this deck if you feel like you're taking too much damage in the early game and most of your damage you're becoming critical triggers because you have bad luck, or you're drive checking also your crits in the early game and you're playing into a meta where your opponent guards every time, then you could pretty much take out the crits and put more draws, so you play 7 crits. Now we come to this crit. I really do not like the art of this card. I don't know why. It's not because it's Gear Chronicle. I'm okay with Gear Chronicle, not all the time. Sometimes I'm okay with Gear Chronicle. But the thing is, it's just, I don't know. It's just too dark. It just doesn't fit the deck. So we are replacing it with this. Borderless art. The colors are better in my opinion. And yeah, because of that, we are playing this in this deck. The card has a skill. The skill is simple. Whenever it boosts at the end of the battle, it goes into your soul and it gives one of your units an extra 2k. The 2k doesn't make a big difference except if you have a grade 1 boosting a grade 3. Then you give that grade 3 or the grade 1 the extra 2k. And that does make a little bit of a difference, because with that, your unit will be able to hit the 10k boosts, or the boost will be 10k. And with that, of course, you will just hit better numbers. If you use 2 and you give it to a grade 2, then it would be 4k, and that would make a difference as well. If you ask me about the foiling, of course the SP looks better. The SP is just the higher quality card, but if you put it in sleeves, you will not even see the difference. But I just like this art more, way more. He's shooting, he's flying. This could be a Sparkweather card, but this is just the Gear Chronicle card, and I just don't like the way that he's posting. I don't know, posing, not posting. My bad. So yeah, we're playing the alternative arts one. At first, I did not play this crit. I played the normal 5k crits. Why? Because most of the time, if you call a booster to the field and it's a trigger, then you need it to be a 5k because you're boosting grade 3s. Most of your attackers are grade 3s. Now you have the Servant in the deck, which is a grade 2. So that does make a difference. If you are boosting with 4k or 5k, it's the same. It's not like boosting grade 3, which makes a difference. So for that reason, we could play more of this. And also, to add to that, is the fact that that extra soul charge does actually make a difference. I did not expect it to make a difference, but it actually does make a difference. And that's just another reason for us to play this. All right, so we have all 4 right here. They're out. Thank you. I'll put you in my beautiful binder. And now it's time to put these into the deck. What do I think about this this new art? Like for all of them, like did they need to do this or this whole set, or they should have done something different? I think it's cool. I am a player that loves to upgrade my deck with more shiny cards, and I think having the triggers in SPs and alternative arts is something that I do enjoy a lot. It also makes the card more accessible for people to get it and to play it, because it was in SP that was very hard to get and was also an expensive SP. It still is, but these are a little bit less expensive, as most of the time their price is between the 30 and the 50. It could go up to 60, but that's pretty much it. It will not go higher than that, I don't think so, or it needs to be sold out everywhere for it to be that expensive, which makes it cheaper than the SP version. And with that, people could just get it and upgrade their deck with it. And also, if people just open up boxes, they will have the chance to get these in, I think, rare, or just the beautiful alternative art. All right. So we'll put these in here. And then we have the last card that we want to talk about in this deck. And those are the last 3 slots that you have. We've already talked about the overtrigger. We don't have to go back and talk about that. The last 3 slots that you have in here are 3 triggers that you could play fronts or you could play draws. Normally, I did not play draws because this deck did deck out and because you did lots of soul charging, especially with cards like Derek that did really went through your deck. If you wanted or not, it did go through your deck. Hey, these have inner sleeves in them. Nice, I did not know. I have to take them out. Get out. So, what do you want to play? You want to play draws or you want to play fronts? Fronts are good during your OTK turn, during your turn that you want to kill, because the front will go to the whole front row, and with that you will benefit because you have restanding attackers, right? And you have a restanding Vanguard. And it does help with the whole 2 to pass thing, because if you are having a front that is the first or the second trigger, then the whole 2 to pass becomes easier because your Vanguard will get the 10k anyway. So again, that's one of the reasons why the fronts are good. But because drive checking a front in the early game does pretty much nothing, because you don't have any attackers except it being a 15k or a 20k shield. That's it. So then the fronts will not be as effective as you wanted it to be. The draws, on the other hand, are more effective, because in the early game, that one extra draw that you will get to your hand does actually make a huge difference. So the draws, in my opinion, are better in this deck. But I only have 1 copy of her, as in this beautiful alternative art. Of course, I have the other SPs of her, and I have all the other rarities. So I have 1 of her in Japanese and 1 of her in English. So for now, I'm adding only 2. And I will add a front to the deck. But whenever I get the other 3 copies of her, I will play 3 or even 4 copies of her in the deck. And I think that most of you guys understand why I do that. So for now, I will add 1 front and 2 draws. If you have any question about this deck, you could just ask me. You could let me know in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to help you out. If you want to have a whole conversation or a call, we could do that as well. I've said that before and I will say it again. I'm very easy to approach on Facebook. I don't really use Discord that much, but I do use Facebook. And on Facebook you could just contact me, and it will be easier for me to answer as well, because sometimes an explanation takes a long time if you type it. But I could just send a voice message, as some of you guys know that I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to reading and writing. Reading cards, I don't mind that, but reading a book, for an example, no, you will not see me read a book. Not ever. I think I have read only 1 book ever, and that's a book that my father wrote. Other from that, you will not see me reading a book. Alright, so this one will get in. This is of course the English version, and yep, this Japanese one will go in, or I will just put the front for now, because these are a little bit thicker and I don't want them to damage the sleeves. So we'll take this one out and I'll put the front in here for now, and then later on we will change these to draws. Alright guys, so you have been with me throughout this whole changing the sleeves thingy, and we got the chance to talk about the deck. You get the chance to hear me talk about a lot of different things, about sleeving, about the deck, about everything. And it's really nice to have the chance to kind of connect with you guys. If you like these kind of videos, me just talking, you could let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to do more of these kind of videos for you guys, because as I said, it does give us a chance to talk to each other, to have a little bit of fun, and for me to explain more and more about the deck. Alright guys, thank you for watching, thank you for tuning in on our channel. Hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I would like to see you in the next video as well. So till next time.